Okay, this is for letter 1.15 on page 12. So you have your greeting with your subject. So Gaius Pliny, he sends greetings, right? Sends his greetings to his Septicius Clarus. Right, and as your editor says, this is probably the same guy from the beginning. So we start out with this exclamation, hey you, right? We're going to call him out right away. And then in this next sentence, we've got one verb and then a second verb. And your editor gives you a lot here. For promitus, understand this verb with an accusative infinitive and indirect statement. So I'm basically supplying te winterum esse, a future active infinitive. Right? You said, or you promise, that you would or will come to dinner. And I'm implying all of that or supplying all of that because the next one, the next part of that sentence goes, do you not come? Right? You promise that you would come to dinner. Do you not come? All right, so calling this person out for not going to dinner. And then Shelton gives us this. Justice, here, use, this is our nominative, is pronounced or is said. This is our present passive here. Is said. And now I go to my verb here. And this is going to be future. You will repay or you will return the cost. Here's my accusative direct object. To the penny. Right? So you will, it's a way of saying you will pay me back every cent, we might say in English. And then he just adds this in kind of snarky, and you kind of want to supply an est here. Nor is it modest. Right? So he's saying that you're going to owe him a lot of money. And the reason that that's funny is because what he's about to list off is really cheap food. Okay, so justice is pronounced, you will repay you will return the cost to the penny, nor is it modest. Now, we're going to start off with this verb in Latin, but really you just kind of want to supply it at some point. It is pluperfect. It is passive, had been prepared, but these are all subjects. These are all nominatives. And actually the nominatives even continue down here. So everything in parentheses is the subject. So at some point, just stop and add in that verb. So individual lettuce, like little lettuce leaves, I guess. Snails by 3 or 3 times snails. Like it's like each person gets one piece of lettuce. Each person gets 3 snails. 2 eggs or eggs by 2. Porridge or wheat or spelt had been prepared. That's where I'm going to stick my verb right there. And then I have this ablative of accompaniment with honey wine and snow. And there's a great little note from Shelton about the rarity of snow. For, there's a little adverb, and I'm going to go here now. You will consider this also, right? Consider the snow as well. They're not going to eat the snow. The snow is just there to keep things cold, but you will like tabulate the snow also. Indeed, especially, or this in particular, the snow in particular. Indeed, this in particular, especially, which, now perio is a word that means die or perish. And so if we're talking about snow, we might say which melts on the tray. Ablative of place where. So he's being very dramatic here. Although it is, snow, ice is not normal. So the snow, they actually had to go into the mountains to bring back snow. And now we're going to go back to all the other things that had been prepared. Olives and beets and cucumbers. I'm throwing in the and. There's no and here. You might even say it's ascendaton. Olives, beets, cucumbers, onions, 1,000 other things. I'm just going to throw in a things here because I'm neuter, plural. No less luxurious. And if we want to be a little saucy, we might say no less fancy. No less fancy. We keep going on to our next sentence, the last one on that page. Here's our verb, and this is what we're going to call an optative, subjunctive, in the pluperfect. And so our subject is you, and to capture that pluperfect subjunctive, would have. You would have, and then we're going to supply heard as our definition. And now here are direct objects, are comedians, or a lecturer, right? Like a professional reciter of poetry or philosopher, a reader, right? A speaker. Or a lyre player, a musician, or, and now here notice I've got polysyndeton here, or what is, and your editor gives you this, which is my generosity, right? Literally, this is my generosity, all of them. So you would have heard comedians or a speaker or a lyre player or all of them, which is my generosity, right? I'm so generous, I would give you all of this entertainment. And now we're going to flip over to the next page and we're going to hear about what the friend actually did. So we start off with this sharp contrast, but you... And then you want to take this phrase all together, and it's worth just noting what Shelton says here. I don't know whom is a very snarky way of saying someone or other, right? I don't know whom. And whenever you put an accusative plus a pud, that equals in Latin at the home of. So if I had put like Marcum here, I would have said at the home of Marcus. But because I put I don't know whom here, I'm going to say, but you at the home of I don't know who, right? Or someone or other. And now I'm going to pause there because all of these guys are now accusative direct objects. So I have to jump down to this verb, which is perfect. But you at the home of I don't know who preferred oysters, so sow's udders. So this is pig udders that were usually stuffed with meat. Okay. Echinos, I think that's, what did I give you for that? Snails or clams? Snails, I think. And then the women from Gades. Women from Gades. And these women, these are dancers, but as your editor notes, it's sort of a lowbrow or crass, a coarser nature. Right? So the stuff that Pliny was offering was very kind of highbrow, right? A reader, the comedian, think more of like a higher level British comedy over, I don't know. And so this is more like belly dancer kind of stuff. Not that, I mean, I like belly, okay. But this is, for a Roman, this is sort of lower, coarser entertainment. You will pay the penalty, or you will pay penalties, sorry, plural. You will pay penalties. I do not say what. And this is just this sort of generic accusative. right? And you could almost supply the poinos here. I do not say what penalties. So it's sort of this vague threat, right? You will pay penalties. I do not say what penalties. Again, the tone of the whole letter is very funny and snarky, and Pliny trying to act really offended when probably he doesn't actually care. He's just giving his friend a hard time. So here's my verb, and this is an adverb. You acted harshly. You acted hurtfully. That you acted hurtfully is actually entirely embedded in the meaning of this verb. And now we go, I do not know. And this is a question word. It means whether. And just bear with me here. We've got a series of datives, right? Dative, dative, dative. And to make this make sense, we're going to translate this et right here as also. And this is Pliny at his most Pliny. I do not know whether for you, right, you acted hurtfully. I do not know whether for you or to you, certainly to me, but nevertheless also to you. Okay. So he's saying, I don't know if you know that you hurt yourself, right? That you did yourself an injustice. You certainly did one to me. And even if you don't recognize it, you also hurt yourself, right? So you acted hurtfully. I don't know whether to you, certainly to me, but nevertheless also to you. And the reason is because as he reminisces through this series of optative subjunctives, how much we would have laughed, we would have smiled or delighted, we would have learned or studied, right? So we would have had such a great time laughing, delighting, smiling, and learning. How much we would have, right? That's what you want to supply there. And if you're missing some of that vocab is supplied for you in Google Classroom. And then our last part we've got, here is our complementary infinitive. And we have a series of comparative adverbs. You are able to dine at the house of many, at the home of many, at many people's houses, more expensively, more luxuriously, never more hilariously, right? More freely, we might say, more simply, and more unguarded. And so this is a subtle nod that there's an intimacy between friends in which you can actually share, let your guard down, not worry if you're using the right salad fork or if you've dribbled wine on yourself or something like that, right? Amongst friends, Pliny's saying you can really just enjoy the mood. And this is what I think you really want to capture as you take his tone, is this idea that what Pliny is offering, it's really not about the stuff, it's about the camaraderie and the genuineness of the experience. So you are able to dine more expensively at the home of others, never more genuinely, more simply, more unguarded. In the end, in summa, in the end, try me out, right? This is actually an imperative. There's a note on that in Shelton. And she actually gives you this whole phrase, here's my verb, and it is future perfect. Woohoo. If you will have not afterward, so this is the if and the not, this is the afterward, this is the will have. If you will have not afterward excused yourself to others, indirect object, preferably